the Mount of Olives, and it was two things. It had olive trees on it, olive fields on it, and an olive press for making olive oil. But it also had thousands of burial plots for Jews. For about 3,000 years, it's been a cemetery. So it's this interesting place. It's this place of life and death at the same place. Olives in the Middle East and kind of this nourishment. The oil was used for health and binding. And so this place, this Garden of Gethsemane, was like this little escape out of the city. Why did Jesus go there? Why did Jesus go to the Garden of Gethsemane? Let's look more closely. Let me pray. Father Almighty, as we look at your Son think about the very first Friday, that Passover, pray that you might give us insight into all that he's done for us by the power of your Spirit. Amen. Look at the words there. Verse 32, they went to a place called Gethsemane. And Jesus said to his disciples, "Sit here while I pray." He took Peter and James and John with him, and he began to be deeply distressed and troubled. "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death," he said. "Stay here and keep watch." That's pretty heavy language, isn't it? Overwhelmed to the point of death. Jesus is feeling soul-crushing, heart-rending grief. I don't know if you've ever felt that. Perhaps when you've heard calamitous news. You almost cannot breathe. Life has leached away from you. I remember when I heard about the death of my father. That's what it was like. Soul-crushing sorrow. That's what Jesus is feeling. Why? Is it the coming betrayal of his disciples? Jesus has just predicted it. He said the Old Testament says that the shepherd will be struck and all of the sheep will be scattered. Is it that he'll be rejected by the chief priests and the leaders of the Jews that he's come to rule and he loves so much? Yes and no. See, there's more going on. Sentence 35. Going a little further, Jesus fell to the ground and he prayed that if possible the hour might pass from him. "Abba, Father," he said, "everything is possible for you. Take this cup from me, yet not what I will, but what you will." Abba, Father. Abba's Aramaic. It's because the Assyrians had conquered northern Israel at the time and then been driven off. "Father, Father, everything is possible for you. Take this cup from me." If you look at the artwork down through the centuries, you often see a picture of an angel, and it's holding a cup, a gold cup or a wood cup, and it's holding this cup out to Jesus. What is the cup? He doesn't have a cup with him. What's the cup he's talking about? Well, throughout the Old Testament of the Scriptures, the cup was used to describe God's just punishment for human wickedness. When nations came in and conquered the Jews and killed their people and tortured women and took children away into slavery, God said, and the Jews would look around and say, "God, what are you doing?" And God would say through his prophets, "My cup of anger will be poured out on those people. My just punishment will come upon them." And then this powerful image, they will drink it down. This idea that God's just judgment for human wickedness and evil will go into the very inside of the person. That the nation, the group of people, the people who caused so much evil, will deeply experience God's just judgment at wickedness. Well, Jesus is saying, "Take this cup from me." But if we know anything about the life of Jesus, if we're looking through Mark's Gospel here at Risen Church week by week, he never does anything wrong. I mean, it's not just that he never sins. I don't know if you know that the life of Brian, the film, John Cleese and the Monty Python crew, they made this film, The Life of Brian, which is kind of mistaken for the Messiah. And then John Cleese was interviewed about that. They said, why did you make The Life of Brian instead of, a mockery of, about the life of Jesus? He said, have you read the narratives? Have you read the story? Comedy comes from people saying the wrong thing at the wrong time and doing stupid stuff. Jesus never does anything that's inappropriate or unwise or not. So hence, Brian became the fall guy. So there's no reason for Jesus to be drinking this cup. And yet, what are his words? Take this cup from me. That cup promised throughout the Old Testament, Jesus sees it as being in his hand. And he's going to drink it. Why? What's the problem? Well, let me talk about Easter eggs for a bit. Don't worry, it's just an illustration. This is not an anti-Easter egg polemic. It's okay. Firstly, 2 things to know. The hollow ones give you more chocolate. 16.5 grams. The small chocolate ones, denser, on average, 8.2 grams. Go hollow every time. So, this is not against Easter eggs. But I want to use that illustration because how's the problem caught? Well, just earlier in the middle of Mark's Gospel, Jesus actually is talking to the religious leaders and he tells them that they have an Easter egg problem. He says to them, you're hollow on the inside. Let me read it out to you. Jesus says this to the most religious people of the ancient Jews. And he quotes the Old Testament. These people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. They worship me in vain. Their teachings are mere human rules. Think about it, that Jesus is saying that the Jewish people and the religious people at the time said they said the right things. They even did the right things. They worship him. And they, if you talk to them and listen to them, they honor Jesus with their lips. You would have thought that they knew and trusted God. You would have looked at their lives and said, they are the real deal. But look what Jesus says. They're hollow on the inside. See his language there? Their hearts are far from me. I put it to you, that's an Easter egg, right? It's shiny foil on the outside, and it's got this beautiful bit of chocolate, but hollow. Their hearts are hollow. That's pretty interesting, isn't it? I think that's a pretty good description of us. We live post-Jesus, post-Christianity. Lots and lots and lots of things matter to our society that are good. We might do lots of right things. But what are the hearts of humanity like towards God? Full or hollow? What's your heart like towards God? Full or hollow? See, Jesus says we've got a heart problem. But the heart comes up again in that same section. Jesus says our hearts are not just hollow, but our hearts, sadly, are unclean. The hollowness means that something has then filled it. A long time ago, I found a lady's wallet back about 500 years ago when people carried cash. And I, looked through her card, rifled through her cards. Sorry, I shouldn't use that word. I pulled out a couple of her cards and rang organisations until I could find out where she lived. Even though people were very dubious about giving me her details. I'm ringing up, I've got this lady's details. Could you tell me her address? Like, what? No, I found her wallet. Well, no, we can't hand over her address. Great, that's great, RACQ, but I can't return her wallet to her if you won't give me her. Anyway, eventually, I found her. I got her wallet to her. And she gave me, and Catherine, a box of favourite chocolates. Oh, we were on a tight budget. That was so good. And favourites had just come out. And one of my favourites was, the Picnic. Do you remember the Picnic? It's kind of chocolate wafers covered in chocolate, and they had to put the nuts on top. Ugly but delicious. You know, that's how they advertised, like ugly but delicious. I pulled a picnic out. It was fantastic. And I was eating it, and I was like, oh, this is a little interesting, this picnic. Never mind. I don't know. Might have been 5 seconds later or a day later. I can't remember. I'm not confessing. I pulled out another chocolate. And it was just one of the plain Cadbury ones. And I ate it. And it tasted even more interesting. And I looked at the piece. And it was riddled with holes. And then I opened up each of the chocolates in the packet. They were a shiny outer layer. They looked perfectly fine from the outside. But inside, they were full of holes and webbing and eggs. And then I looked at the use by date. Jesus says about our hearts, in this same conversation in Mark chapter 7, what comes out of a person is what defiles them. For it is from within, out of a person's heart, that evil thoughts come. Sexual immorality, theft, murder, adultery, greed, malice, deceit, lewdness, envy, slander, arrogance, and folly. These evils come from inside and defile a person. Jesus is saying, it doesn't matter how good you look in lycra. It's what's going on in the heart. It doesn't matter how prestigious or successful or shiny your life looks. It doesn't matter how much your life looks like a favourites box and everyone else looks at your life and says, whoa, I wish my life looked like that. Jesus says it's what's at the very centre of our hearts. Our hearts are the place where we make decisions. And he says because of the hollowness before God, something else has filled it. And it's corrupted us. And that is human sin. It's the reason we can't do the good that we long to do. And this list is my list. And I'm sure it's your list. Sexual immorality, or porneia, sexual porneia, theft, hatred, murder towards others, hatred towards others, adultery, wanting what's not ours, greed, malice, deceit, lewdness, envy, slander, arrogance, and just plain old stupidity. I tick a few things on that list. How about you? So Jesus is in a garden. Why a garden? Well, the story of the Bible is a story of gardens. See, humanity is hollowed out towards God. Humanity is corrupted in heart towards God. I think that's why the Bible emphasises this place, the Garden of Gethsemane. Because the first people, Adam and Eve, were in a garden. Humanity's problem began in a garden. And God said to Adam and Eve, you can eat from any tree in this garden, in this paradise that I have given you. But do not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, or you will die. I'm the life-giving God. Listen to me, and you will have life with me forever. But if you don't listen to me, it will lead to death. And if you read the scriptures, it'll lead to evil and death in the world. And Adam and Eve said to God, not your will be done, but my will be done. And they took that fruit and they ate it. Not your will be done, but my will be done. I put it to you, God is the God of goodness and greatness and holiness. He wants us to live those good lives where we cherish the people around us and value them as much as He does. And every time we dishonour people, we're actually saying to God, not your will be done, but my will be done. And so Jesus is in a garden. And He has come as a man. God the Son has taken on human flesh and He represents all humanity. It's another point. It's humanity in the garden before God. And yet Jesus says, Father, Everything is possible for you. I know you can take this cup of judgment from me. I know that you could do that. And I want you to take this cup from me. I'm afraid of the judgment of the world that's going to come upon me, because that's what was in the cup. And Jesus was going to drink it down on the cross. That's why Jesus is sorrowful to the point of death. Not because he's afraid of death, but he's afraid of the judgment that the world deserves that will come on him. But then listen to these words. Yet not what I will, but what you will. Are they not the most incredible words? Yet not what you will. Sorry, not what I will, but what you will. Oh, that was... And so that's what's happening in the next bit of Mark's Gospel, in the next couple of chapters in all the Gospels. That Jesus on the cross is drinking down the just punishment of God. The just punishment that ought to have fallen on us. But Jesus drank it down into the very depths of his soul. Upon the cross. It went into him, and he faced God's wrath and anger at human wickedness, at our hollow hearts, that mean our hearts are corrupt, and all the evil that flows from that. He experienced God's judgment for our hollow hearts. And that's why when he said, when he died, it is finished. Because God's judgment had been poured out on him. As we saw in the children's talk, the temple curtain was ripped from top to bottom. And do you know what described the inside of the most holy place in the temple? Do you know what was pictured on the walls? A garden. The inside of the most holy place, on the fabric and on the walls of wood, was a garden. Because now humanity could come back into the very presence of God. Because when God looks at those who've trusted in Jesus, he doesn't see sinners. He sees those who are sinless. Because Jesus died for them. There's no more judgment. There's no more anger. There's no just penalty to be paid on them, on us. Because Jesus paid for it all on the cross. That's why Easter is so good. That's why it's a weekend filled with so much joy, but also deep sorrow. Look what we did to Jesus. So have you come to him? Have you trusted in him? And if you have, brothers and sisters, hold on to him so that you might be in the garden city with God forever. Let me pray for us. Father Almighty,